All right, everyone, welcome back to the Here for the Truth podcast. I'm Joel Rafidi. Got my co-host Erasmus with me as always. Just quickly, I want to thank everyone who has enrolled in Rise Above the Herd round 9. Doors are now closed, and Erasmus, myself, and Sophie, we're super excited to facilitate another round of powerful transformations for those who have trusted us to go on this journey. Looking forward to that for sure. Today we have Charles Myssy from Sydney in the house with us today. We're diving into an exploration of self and what it really means to be a multifaceted human being with different traits, different qualities, and how we can exert that appropriately and be fluid within different circumstances. And plus getting into his interesting origin story as well. So without any further ado, thanks for being here. Please enjoy this episode.
You are now listening to the Here for the Truth podcast, hosted by Joel Rafidi and Gerasimos.
Charles Myssy is a shadow work practitioner that guides people in exploring, healing, and integrating the deeper and hidden aspects of themselves. He's one of the co-founders of Tribr, an international community committed to undergoing the healing and transformative process in a structured, safe, and supportive environment. And Bondi Sunset Music, a sober dance party that's mission is to reconnect people through dance and music. Charles, welcome to Here for the Truth.
Thanks, boys. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me on, and everyone that's tuning in, listening. Thank you for being here as well.
No worries, man. The pleasure's all ours, man. You're doing great work on social media, and was very much so felt compelled to have this conversation with you. One way we always like to kick these off, man, we want to just dive deep and explore a little bit about your personal hero's journey, like some of your own major transformative, catalyzing, the rites of passage that I guess have led you to evolve in the way that you've evolved.
Yeah, cool, bro. So I'd say mine began when I was like 8 years old. Mum and dad split up. And at that point, I was the man of the house and severely, underqualified for the role at that time. But nevertheless, there's such a beautiful divine intelligence within all of us that no matter what circumstances that we're in, our nervous system always finds a way. And so for me at that point in time, there was a big shift where, as a result of the stress that, the family was undergoing, we were in housing commission at that point in time, and a lot of financial stress. Mum's got 4 kids, single mother at that time, and all of my siblings were women. So I was like the only, man there. And growing up in a culture, Lebanese culture, there is like a heavy emphasis on like the man being the protector, the provider. So it was almost like I had this inherent sense of what it felt like a responsibility to try and fit into those roles there, and it all kind of really kind of slapped me in the face when our house got robbed a few times. Like kind of walking around on the streets, you would notice like other men checking out my mom and my sisters. They're beautiful women. And, as I was a teenager, that really started to just, infuriate me, almost because I felt like I was the only one that would be able to do something if something was to happen.
Yeah.
Luckily, when our house got robbed, none of us were home. But nevertheless, there was these thoughts going on in my mind, as a young kind of child going, well, what if we were here? I would have to be the kind of barrier there to defend my mother and my sisters. And growing up in Burwood, there was a few like interactions where it was a bit rough. Young men would kind of congregate in their own little groups, and some of them would carry knives, and it would get a little bit tribal, and people would get into fights with each other. There was a moment where me and a really good friend of mine got jumped by a larger group of slightly older men. We would have been about 15. They would have been about like 19, 20. It was all over a dispute of, my friend his ex-girlfriend now going out with some other guy. And, it was all just a bunch of bullshit really. But, there was, they felt compelled to do that to us. And I just remember after getting jumped, feeling really kind of helpless, powerless, weak. And just like, holy shit, like that's how you went. Like there was some other fights before where I did pretty good and we kind of won and, got a few people in the face. And it was like, yeah, I could defend, but it's just like, wow, what am I going to do if like a group comes like that's it. I'm fucked. Like there goes, my family's getting, and I remember I would go to bed at night, like kind of playing out these scenarios in my mind. Like what would I do if there was guys pinning me down and then they're like assaulting my mum and my sisters, and it would just like really scare the shit out of me. And so it was at that point in time where I decided to start training, and that was like the first thing I ever did. That was like a step in the positive direction. Before that, I was like heavily addicted to porn, video games, like not playing any sports, not having much structure in my life, kind of like just going day to day, failing at school, like, not having my dad around and not having that kind of push there to achieve and things like that. It really kind of crippled me in that area. But that was the first thing I did for myself, where I was like, nah, come on, you're going to go sign up at the boxing gym, you're going to start training. And it was like a first form of self-development that I had and from that moment. So yeah, that was like the first thing that I did. And then after that, I eventually became a personal trainer as a result of like, all this training that I did for years. And then when I was in my early 20s, I got into PT and I just had a passion for helping people. And then turned out that PT was pretty good, making good cash at that time. And I was really determined to make money. So that was like kind of a next step in my journey with business and helping people, being of service to people. And then I started traveling the world with that money that I had. I wasn't interested in like, drugs and shopping, buying fancy clothes and, fancy cars and all that shit. I just wanted to go and travel. I had like a deep interest in like, people like Louis Theroux and David Attenborough, like all these people, Ross Kemp, like really traveling to like really kind of weird places, like gangsters and shit. So that I was like trying to mimic that in a way. I was really intrigued, and I started traveling to some, kind of gnarly places, or at least the places I would go to. I would try to go to some gnarly areas within those places. And I had some incredible experiences, some like really dangerous, went to some really dangerous places as well. Dangerous in terms of like from people, but also from nature as well. So like going in the jungle of like, near India, Nepal, and seeing like tiger footprints, and going to try and find like wild Asiatic rhinos, and, going in Africa, hiking up mountains, and, going to deserts, and going on the border of Afghanistan, and just going to Brazilian favelas, like just all this random stuff. It was like I was thrill seeking. It was like a kind of way.
Why do you think that you wanted to go to these dangerous places?
Yeah, I think there was like a sense of familiarity with it, like because, the early childhood-ish environments were, obviously not like that. There wasn't fucking tigers walking around my house and, people carrying guns and shit everywhere in my home. But there was a sense of familiarity for what it gave my nervous system, like just kind of. And that could be, ancestral before, even my life experience. My family grew up in a civil war in Lebanon, and there would have been a large amount of that trauma that was passed down to us just based on the state of their nervous system when we're all hanging out with our family as as children. So there's probably something deeper there. But I think there was just something for me spiritual about going on this quest, this journey. At the beginning, you mentioned like hero's journey. Like,
yep,
I didn't think I could get that in inner West in Sydney. Like it just was such a, like everyone, more or less has similar values and talking about the same shit. And
it's a bubble.
Like it's a bubble. I just need to get out of it and just go and climb a fucking mountain, and just because, like, I just wanted to go in a jungle and just because there was something that my soul was telling me to do. And very grateful that it did, because it taught me so much. So yeah, I'd say that that's kind of like the teenage and like early to mid 20s portion of my
Yeah, man. Thanks for sharing all that. It's interesting. Like, we all have like this unique, karmic footprint, which leads us down certain rabbit holes. And, ultimately, in my opinion, is like, it's the soil for us to ultimately transmute into our gifts and into our wisdom. So like with you, like having to like step into that role of being the man in the house at like 8 years old, like what kind of a psychological path do you think that set you down to have to ultimately resolve and reconcile?
Yeah, I think like without that, like I'm 32 years old, and sometimes all throughout my life, really, I've always had people say, "Oh, you seem older for your age, and you're more mature and all this sort of stuff."
Yeah.
And I definitely credit that just to that experience of when I was young. What it kind of felt like a portion of my childhood. At the time, it felt like it was being taken away, but I was given something, more that I believe, inspired me to step into these sort of positions now where, I'm, the leaders of these, sort of communities that I have, whether it's the drumming community, which was created during COVID, just because, we wanted to keep partying and go outside and connect with each other. And, during that time, there was a lot of fear and isolation and separation. It's inspired me to do things like that, but it's also inspired me to create, the community of Tribr, which we do retreats and online courses. And I think you're involved in that sort of stuff, Joel, as well. Working with people. I'm not so sure about you if you guys are doing the same thing there, but it's definitely inspired me to be a leader in these sort of communities and co-found them. Just because at that time I kind of felt like I had to step into something greater than my little 8-year-old self. So I think that's what it's given me.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah, go for it.
Well, I was gonna say, when did you first get really interested in doing more like internal work? You said you were trained as like a trainer and that kind of thing. You traveled, but like, what was it that made you think like, oh man, there's this universe that lives inside of me, within me. Like, I want to really get to know who I am in the context of the world, in the context of my family, in the context of all my relationships. Like, what was that spark that really got you really curious to go down this path and get into shadow work and reclaim lost parts of yourself?
Yeah, I think just understanding that there was like a conscious process to have some of these realizations or breakthroughs that I was getting, as I was going through this, sort of journey of traveling, spending time in nature, just like self-reflecting. Like, all the answers are already within us. So I was making some of these connections from, my conscious mind to the unconscious aspects of myself, going, oh my God, that's, that's where it's from. I was having some of these experiences, and they were, really helpful for me in my development. And then I was just more passionate about helping other people, trying to make some of these connections to these deeper aspects of themselves. Even when I was doing PT, there was a desire. I didn't necessarily know the tools of how to support people with that. But there was like an intuitive knowing that, hey, this guy drinking too much, eating too much, highly stressed, not sleeping enough, kind of on and off with his, training and health program. There's something more there to it, rather than me just being a drill sergeant and going, come on, get up and, stay motivated. You don't want it bad enough. Like, that just fizzled out pretty quickly on my PT journey of 8 years. And there was just kind of something more here. And I was working in a Sydney CBD, super high stress, environment, working with high paying corporates and, and a lot of them really struggling, once you get to know them in their relationships, their sleep's fucked, some of them are alcoholics, so there's something there that I just kind of realized, like, okay, there's something more than just getting 6-pack abs and counting reps to this, world here. And when I was traveling, I'm going to these places, spending a lot of time in places like villages, tribes, remote communities, where people there, like, bro, like before you go to these countries, like the government website is like, don't travel here. Or people in, the bubble, they think everyone there's backwards, or, why would you go there? Like, it's such a boring place to perhaps go. But you go there and there's so much richness and depth that the people there have to spirituality, to the land. They're all growing their own food, and they're all like living. They're all so connected to like the community. Everyone knows everyone. Like you're hanging out with some family sleeping in their home, and there's some great grandmother there, like over 100 years old, like squatting down and picking up one of her great grandchildren, like full depth squat, like, and you're just like, fuck, man, how many people in their 30s do I train in the city? They can't, like they try and squat and their fucking body just like crumbles down. You're like, and people there, like I'm walking in like the Himalayas, and there's like some lady that looks like she's in her 70s, like carrying all this wood on her back along this like trail in the mountains going to her village. And you walk past her and she has the decency to stop there, smile at you and go, namaste.
Yeah.
You just keep walking and you're like, bro, what the fuck?
Yeah. I hear you there, man. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to do some backpacking to a bunch of places, and you go to these spots and these people don't have the comforts or the luxuries that, many of us grew up with in the West. And yet you see that connection in their eyes and the way they look at you, the way they're present with you, the way they have gratitude for what they do have, and it was like, even spending time there, I wasn't like, oh, I want their life, but what lessons can I take back? What can I integrate into my life, to add to the richness of it? And it is the gratitude for the simple things, and to be able to be connected to your community. And I really appreciated that element of it. It was eye-opening to me.
Yeah, me too. But all these illusions were just getting. I was becoming disillusioned by all the goggles of all the programming from society, value, and it was all just like fucking crumbling down. I'm like, bro, come back, and I'm just like, where the fuck am I, dude? Like, back to Sydney, it was just like because just seeing it completely differently. So, like, I had like a deep passion of helping people, and then I started kind of seeing, some of these deeper problems that people needed help and guidance to be resolved. And so then it all kind of started during COVID. When COVID hit, I was still PTing at that time, knowing that I wasn't going to be PT for the rest of my life. Like, always had this sense of, fuck, there's something else I'm going to do. I don't know what it is, but I don't want to count reps in the city anymore, listening to shitty top 40 music playing on. So when COVID hit, I was like working in the garage area, just like doing outdoor sessions, just making cash. And then everyone's kind of mental health, started, coming to the surface. Like, we have a mental health issue. It's like, yeah, no shit, man. It's been there all along. The moment you put people now in isolation, they got to sit with themselves, and all the distractions are more or less gone. It really kind of brings it up. And this is what I saw before, COVID, just from traveling. I'm just walking around going, fuck, everyone is fucking, I was pretty judgmental at that time. It's like the first stages of your awakening. You're like, everyone is asleep but me, you know what I mean? and then I decided to start studying forms of coaching, psychotherapy. And since then, I've just studied a whole bunch of stuff. Hypnotherapy, parts work, internal family systems, family constellation, like just all these different kind of more experiential processes of, deeper inquiry. And I eventually just, got into that completely. I was like, okay, see you later, PT. Thank you for getting me to this point. But I'm ready to now like start being of service in this way. And been doing that for 4 years now.
Great, man. Thank you for sharing all that.
Welcome, brother. My pleasure, mate.
I love the Lebanese Aussie kind of,
Yeah.
vibe.
That-
It's been
Well, I just,
I kind of miss it. That's
well,
that's
just
why
just
you're
much,
here, Charles.
yeah, that's why. But just much respect, man. I always, when I meet someone else that just has gone on that journey and is like, you know what, I'm gonna just pick up, I'm gonna throw a backpack on, I'm gonna travel. I want to see this world for myself because it makes me think of the story, and I've talked about this on this podcast before. The story of Siddhartha, where he just goes on this journey. He leaves the comforts of his palace, wherever. He's like, hey, I want to go on this journey of learning more about myself. And I remember when I was gonna go to Colombia, however many years ago, and everyone in the U.S. was like, "You're gonna get kidnapped. You can't go to Colombia. There's fucking drug lords everywhere." I was like, like there are people there that live and they have great lives, and it's not just fucking drug haven every corner you go. Like there are villages and cities, but like again, the programming is so strong. It blows my mind.
Bro, even like before I moved to Mexico, like fear porn that I was being, sent from my family, from my parents, even from like I've got in-laws who are not, on my brother's side who are Mexican, who are like, oh, you can't go to that city, it's just
Well,
it's insane.
I told you the story when I studied abroad in Australia in 2001, my third year of uni, and everyone was like, "Yo, there's like sharks and fucking kangaroo. Like you got to watch out." Like I'm like,
bro,
like,
every single Mexican who finds out I'm from Australia, they're shit scared of visiting Australia purely because of the, what they've seen through Animal Planet, through National Geographic. Like they think like in urban cities, there's like massive crocodiles walking around, getting ready to fuck you up. It's
Crocodile
nuts.
Dundee movies, man, too. That was our exposure in the U.S., man. Crocodile Dundee.
Well, it obviously just shows you the the conditioning there, that the fear, and it's something that I had a part of me that had a real kind of anti-conformist, anti-authority approach to life, especially in my teenage years. It was always like, Tupac music, fuck the world, and it's a great part of me, right?
It's like cliche. I love it.
It was a great part of me because it was actually the part of me that, kind of stood up, particularly during COVID. I didn't get vaccinated. I chose to kind of do my own thing during that time. But it was actually that part of me that also came out during that time going, fuck the system, dude. And it was great. And it also got me to go, fuck all everyone, scared to travel to a, Muslim country or Africa or, South America and all this sort of stuff. I'm going to go anyway. So, I think it's an important part that everyone has some part that's willing to kind of, not conform with what's normal around them and just kind of follow their own path at times, and not having that part there integrated or, completely demonizing that part, it can lead to us just fucking, it's normal, everywhere.
Yeah. And the downside, if you just are operating from that part, if that part takes a hold of your psyche, then that's not good either. And so this is where it's like, how do you integrate both and be able to see, the gifts and the limitations of these parts within us?
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Because you follow that part too much, you end up going to jail or getting killed. Like, it's fine, man. I can go and just hang out with the drug lords and, in Mexico, like kind of like actually pursuing that. So I think just to answer your question, I think that was a really good question, is that there's always like a self that is the center of us. And then outside of that, we have all these different parts. So we might have the, anti-conformist part, the part that's, more sensitive towards how other people are going to perceive us. We've got all these different parts here that are all, adaptations to circumstances that we're all going through at different points in our lives. My anti-conformist part came out because it was going, fuck you to my dad. Mm-hmm. So that's what the projection was, and it wasn't serving me to some degree, but it was serving me a lot of that time because that's all I kind of knew what to do, kind of just create that separation between my father and, become more independent within myself, because I couldn't rely on him, because if I did, I'd get disappointed and that was hurtful. So, I think from the center of myself, observing that part, going, look, I get why you're there. I know what you've been through. Like, makes sense. I understand it. What you did at that time was the right thing to do. That's all you knew what to do, and that's great. But yeah, from myself, I can give him some guidance, and either, if he's going a bit out of hand, go connect with him, but like, it's okay, bro. Like, I get it. You just need some love. Let me give you some love, brother. Maybe we can direct some of that energy and, kind of go towards these projects, or, something like that, or, if it's a time where it's like, no, yeah, go. I can just go run free in this moment. I'll check in with you in a moment. If, I'll be here to monitor you and, witness and observe you and, cheer you on. But if there's any times where it's going to be too far, I'll come in and reconnect with you. And, perhaps we'll get another part step in there and take over. You can have a break, right? Put your legs up now and kick back for a bit. All right, now you can go do something. So I think, if we're not becoming enmeshed in these parts of us, where that part of us is becoming us, that's when we're disconnecting from ourselves. But if, we've got a strong connection to ourselves and we're in relationship to these parts, we can be more self-led and we can, lead them, this entire system that we have, and we don't have to kind of cut it out and be like, okay, fuck off now. I don't need you anymore. Exile, abandon, or reject these different parts of us.
Yeah. It's interesting to consider why like Tupac and, Tupac's message was so magnetizing to an entire like generation, even gangster rap in general, and ultimately it's because like it's that rebellious spirit that was probably disowned in the majority of that generation.
Well, yeah,
right?
that's what I'm saying. These certain characters or people, they carry the disowned self.
Yeah.
For, many people within the collective. And so people are drawn to that, Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That's exactly why I resonated with Tupac before. I felt like he was speaking to that part of me that other people perhaps didn't quite understand or couldn't relate to. Definitely, leaders within the collective at that time, I didn't feel like they understood it at all. They were more likely to demonize and those parts of myself. So yeah, it kind of felt like that part wasn't heard by other elements of the collective. So I had to go more kind of underground, or Tupac became mainstream, but then it kind of gave that part of me a sense of belonging. Like other people kind of get it, and they kind of gone through the same thing. Especially hearing Tupac talking about his dad, single mom, all this sort of stuff. There was a lot of things there that I could really relate to on a deeper level outside of his message about, guns and whatever. But that was really just kind of explaining the raw reality of, what he was going through. That was a manifestation of these deeper, core issues within those communities.
Now a short break from the episode.
While the doors to Rise Above the Herd are closed for now, we do have available our membership community, Friends of the Truth. And this is a community that I cannot speak highly enough of. Amazing individuals in there, diving deep, being real, being vulnerable, walking their path. And it's really something that's kind of become the ultimate support network. For people who are fans of this podcast and fans of the topics that we discuss, we have in-house facilitators and practitioners, helping and assisting our community on topics like German new medicine, birth and motherhood, astrology, human design, nervous system. And it's just a great place. And on top of that, we also now offer 2 tiers. There's a basic tier and a premium tier. But you can learn all about that at friendsofthetruth.co or hit the link in the show notes. And not to mention, obviously, the best part is that you get to connect with us.
Back to the episode.
Where did you from Sydney, Joel?
Yeah, I'm from Sydney, man. Grew up initially, like the first, I guess, third of my life, I was in the West, so like kind of Fairfield kind of area. Then I moved to the Shire as a 12-year-old and kind of grew up there, basically around Cronulla.
Yeah,
Shire.
Yeah,
and Erasmus, where you're an American, right?
Yeah, my parents are both born and raised in Greece, so I'm first generation U.S. But yeah, I was born in New Jersey and was on the East Coast for most of my life until I moved out to L.A. about 11 years ago. So yeah, but I live in the Los Angeles area, right outside of it.
Okay.
So Tupac's from, bro. No, it's not.
What
He
do you
was born in New York.
That's where Tupac's from. No, he's New York, right?
Sorry.
Was New York?
He was born in New York, but he
Yeah.
represented the West Coast.
That's
Yeah. How did you initially come into parts work, Charles? And I guess if you can speak a bit more into the process of like how this has helped a system that's helped you evolve. Erasmus has been into parts work for a long time. He was introduced to it actually through a system called Voice Dialogue, which was founded by Helen Sidra Stone. But I know currently internal family systems and the work of Dr. Richard Swartz has become really popularized.
Yeah, I think for me, I resonated with it because it just gives permission for, these parts that if you're just going through like a more rational based prefrontal cortex, talk therapeutic dialogue may not, give as much permission energetically to entertain and allow these, different parts to express. So I never resonated with the, conventional talk therapy. You overly intellectualize your past.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of learn every detail about, the traumatic event. You expose yourself to it. I think I didn't resonate with that because I, first of all, never went down that path. But wherever I ended up, I was getting a lot of people wanting to work with me that had gone through that.
Uh-huh.
And I was seeing the after effects of it. And this isn't to, criticize that part isn't, it can be just a part of their process. They work through that stage and then they eventually get to another stage where they're, ready to be a bit more embodied and explore, other facets of themselves, right? So that's what just brought value for me in terms of not just focusing on, that element of healing or therapy. But I also just resonated with it a lot because I feel like I got fuckloads of parts of me, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel scrambled and like, who am I? But, there's a lot of different ways I express myself, and
What part is present with us now, Charles?
past present.
The I'm on a podcast part. No.
Okay.
There you go.
Look at the behind me. Yeah, there's and social media has been a cool platform for me to express these different parts. Like, and now and again I'll make a funny video, some of them more serious. Maybe I'll talk about something happening in the world, and that kind of political or human rights part of me comes out. So there's a different aspects of myself, and definitely more that I don't show on social media as well. So yeah, so yeah, I think the parts work, it just gave like this like curiosity, like, wow, I could really explore the part of me that wants to punch someone in the face when they piss me off. Yeah, the part of me that wants to, just all aspects of myself are welcome here. And that's really cool. There's something so interesting about that. And what I really loved about it as well is it's like essentially no matter what a client could present to me, it's a pretty simple process to then explore like the intention of that part, their role, their origins, which can really bring up a lot of awareness for people that can help them just coexist with these parts, or at least work towards unburdening them. And there was some aspects of like coaching and other psychotherapeutic models that I was using before that wasn't addressing certain things that I was personally struggling with clients, or they were struggling with, like whenever they would kind of shut down or go blank, mid-session, or can't recall memories, and those aspects of it. And pathwork really kind of filled in that gap for me, because then we began being curious to the part that is creating the blank energy, the part that is, hiding the memory, that became a part. It wasn't just like, I can't remember. It's like, cool. Can you kind of perhaps connect to that part that's, just blank there, that blank energy, that confused or that scramble, whatever, perhaps connect to that. And then it was awesome because then you're they're getting insight like, wow, that part of me is actually doesn't want me to go there because, you know, it feels like there's a lot of overwhelming emotion there. It doesn't trust that I have the capacity to process now, or it's trying to protect me, these vulnerable parts that I'm hiding from being seen and revealed. So that brought a lot of clarity for people that just built a lot of self-compassion, where before they would kind of say, oh, I'm dumb, I'm stupid, I can't remember anything, you know, I'm destined to never heal ever, I can't recall my memories. So it just became a process that brought up lots of, you know, compassion and self-understanding, which I found to be very healing for a lot of people.
Yeah, man, that work changed my life. And I was first introduced to it by my first acting mentor when I was in New York City. So I was training to be an actor, and he studied with Doctors Hal and Sidra Stone. I mean, Hal passed away in 2020 at 93, but they created something called voice dialogue, the psychology of selves, and the aware ego process. I'd actually be curious to know if Richard Schwartz and them at least crossed paths at some point, because they started this in, like, I think the late 70s. But I mean, it had an impact on me because you come into an acting class and it's like, okay, here's, you know, how you were raised. This is your personality, but how can you honor that process and go, okay, well, these are just parts of me. They're not just me. And how can you integrate more of who you are? So first of all, from an acting standpoint, you can empathize and connect with all sorts of different characters in a real way because you see them, you know these parts within yourself. You're not just like trying to represent it and fake act it. It's truly within you. But the side effect was, in your real life, it just supported you in knowing yourself more and integrating more of who you are. And ultimately, not only having compassion for yourself, but I've found compassion for others, because I see people do quote unquote stupid shit or fucked up shit or evil shit. And I'm like, oh, I know that part. I know that part. Oh, I could do that. I could do that. And it's such a rich experience because you're not in this place of like demonizing yourself. You're realizing it's a part. Like I'll just be walking on this beautiful sunny day, and all of a sudden this like thought comes in, and I'm like, whoa, where did you come from? And I'm not like having this 5 minute like, oh my God, what did I think that I'm such a horrible person? It's just like, okay, there you are today. Cool. Thanks for coming and visit me. And then I'm just off doing my thing, you know, and it's because we are this multiplicity, you know, like Walt Whitman said, we contain multitudes. We have so many different parts of us. And I think for the person that is more quote unquote whole or integrated, we have more opportunity for success in our lives because different situations very often require different aspects of us. But for someone who's super rigid and super conditioned and super repressed, they kind of can only operate in a certain, you know, in a certain way. So, and I just, yeah.
In a box or something. Yeah. It's definitely.
Yeah, and I just love that approach. You know, I haven't dove too deep into IFS, but like the people that I meet and I have conversations with, it's similar, you know, and voice dialogue, literally like you're working with someone and you move to different places in the room. And so they'll like, okay, well, where is this part in you? Where in the room is it? Okay, can I talk to that part? And it's the same thing like you said, we find out who this part is, the role it is, its origin, its history. And it's just, and the moving part really creates separation to understand, hey, this is just a part of me. And people talk like this, but they don't even know what they're talking about. They'll say, oh, a part of me wants to go out tonight. A part of me doesn't want to go out tonight. A part of me wants to leave my husband. A part of me doesn't want to leave my husband. A part of me wants to, but they don't, even though they talk that way, they don't realize they're separate, like energetic parts or subpersonalities or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, correct. And it's because it's all this information is already known in our sub or unconscious. It's just bringing up in our consciously for people to be like, oh, okay, no, they're actually, you know, I've been saying this stuff all along, but I can actually see it, you know, more clearly now, which definitely helps people just organize, you know, their thoughts, or they might have one struggle, but there's like, you know, 5 different parts of them all kind of intertwined, you know, arguing with each other, and just being able to identify the different parts of them there and see like, oh, okay, they're all trying to protect me and help me in some way over here. And it diffuses a lot more in a conflict. Very similar to like the collective, you know, we can have different groups of people within the collective fighting each other, and we can see it within the collective as different parts of the collective, different subgroups, you know, different cultures within the collective, and each part has its role, each culture has its own like national, sort of identity, its aspirations, its needs, its fears, its story, its history, and each one is trying to meet its basic human needs. And whenever different parts of different groups are there fighting each other, there's just more or less a misunderstanding between them. So it's
I find it so interesting, especially when you have like a crisis in your life or an event, and to really sit with these different parts that are trying to pull on you, because they have their agendas, they have their ways they want to go about things. Like my father recently passed away 3 weeks ago, and even just that event, like the part of me that was like gutted and super sad that my dad passed. Another part of me is like, hey, he's 94 years old, he fucking lived a good life and he fucking left. The part of me that was like, listen, you got to be strong for your mom. Like, this isn't the time for you to be like vulnerable and crying. You got to fucking handle shit. So all these different, and then the part of me that like is just kind of like apathetic, because doesn't want to fucking deal with this shit. So it's so interesting to see within a single event with over a 2-week period, to kind of dialogue internally and tune in and feel in and be like, okay, what does this part even feel like in my body? What's the state? How am I moving? How am I sounding? What's present within me? It's a trip.
Yeah, bro. Yeah. It's a powerful process to, in particular, to have that awareness of yourself as you're going through an experience like that, because all these different parts of us have energy to them. And, I think if mission for them to be there, you can, just allow that energy to move through a process, like that.
Yeah. And for a person to not like, without understanding this framework, even consciously, a person could just think they're fucking going insane.
Yeah.
I can't make a decision. Oh, fuck, what's happening to me? I'm having all these thoughts. Whereas like, if you have the ability, again, it's not always going to be super clean, but to realize this element of like, these are parts of me, they're not me in a sense, they're parts of me. And when you can separate that and delineate that, it creates more freedom. It creates more compassion and understanding and peace,
Yeah. Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah, for sure. I agree. I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah. So I guess the question that's going to like come up is like, so what is me? What is I? When we say we have we have goals, we have objectives, we have values, where is that coming from? Is there like an overarching umbrella of agreed upon goals and values and direction in life?
That isn't influenced by the parts. Is that what you're saying?
No, whether there's a basic agreement among the parts that this basically is the direction we all agree is the closest to what we all agree on. Okay. that we all value.
Yeah, I think it's if I'm gonna just summarize, it's always towards life. All these parts are supporting us moving towards life. Or if we don't use the word life, we can use love. These are all these different parts of us are all supporting us in some way to.
Isn't there a part that wants to sabotage us away from love?
Yeah. So do you have an example of that? We can just quickly explore. What would be an example of a part that sabotages love?
It's so common within relationships, isn't it? Like people that
you're in a great relationship and then you go fuck someone, and then like part of you goes and like whatever.
Like a part that cheats and wants to cheat on a partner.
Sure. Right, or a part that can't tolerate contentment or happiness or joy, and goes and starts a fight, or goes and starts an argument.
Yeah. Great. All right. So just to like give a brief example of how that could be, a form of love. Again, it's perhaps love that's not in the form of love, but it is a form of love. So let's say someone who starts a fight, creating drama in a relationship because calm and a regulated state within a nervous system perhaps feels unfamiliar. Okay, so there's a part that's there going, I'm not used to this. Like something's going to happen. Something's going to happen now. I'm not used to, what is this? This is unfamiliar. This is boring. Okay, what am I going to do? start fucking nitpicking and fighting and arguing and creating drama there. Why? This part saw when they were younger their parents doing the same shit to each other. As a young child, and your brain is incredibly small, and it's growing and evolving, reaches 90% by the time you're 7 years old. You enter into this world. This is what's most normal and familiar to you. You see your parents fighting every day. You're watching a relationship between a man and a woman, intrigued, going, this is what a relationship with a man and a woman is. This is what love is. So we have a part of us that honors the love of those before us, because without those before us, we wouldn't be here. It's kind of like a contract that we, unconsciously sign on behalf of this part, again, not our whole selves, that this part will then go, mother and father, this is the love that without your love, I wouldn't be where I am today. I will carry this forward now. And then, you're just there kind of starting fights and nitpicking. And then afterwards, you might do that and feel ashamed of yourself. Why the fuck am I creating so much drama there? What the fuck, man? He's such a nice guy. He's better than all my ex-partners. Why am I doing it? Well, there's a part there that it's familiar for them to experience love in their own distorted and twisted way that we can judge on the outside. That's a form of love that they express, from their perspective. So that's like how I would.
Yeah, I get what you're saying there. I mean, I think using the word love can be confusing for some people, but when you explain it that way, I hear what you're saying. Because I think of like, okay, part of me that can just fucking kill someone. Even let's say I was a psychopath. Where that's a whole nother thing. But anyways, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, we can
play this. Yeah.
You play this game anyway, like psychopath stabs someone and they get this fucking rush and and they feel presence, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah. But I want to go back to what Joel said too about like when we talk about like who we are, who are we? Like I don't know.
The common one is the authentic self.
Yeah, people say the authentic self, and I remember my teachers, they used to not use that word. I know I use it sometimes because it's like which self is more authentic than the other. And it's like they created the term the aware ego process. It's like the ability to stand between opposites, to separate. Like it's like having an aware ego that can make choices, having the experience of these parts or selves as they call it, and utilizing awareness and the experience, to move through the world. But when I think of like human design or astrology or numerology, like some of this stuff is highlighting, these parts that are present in us, that are default in us, that might come out more. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know, in a sense that's describe yourself.
So like in Helen Sidra's work, like the aware ego, basically the captain of the ship, the maestro, like does that have its own tendencies, traits, thoughts, feelings, or is that simply a passive?
The aware ego is like is like the, if you think of the ego as like the executor of the psyche, like the aware ego is kind of holding the space for these parts, for these opposites that exist. It's like when we talk about the tension of opposites, it's like being able to not just have one part take over. You're sweating, you're standing between the tension of two opposites within you, and you can hold a container for that. Anyways, that's my way of talking about it. But
so I wonder if there's like parts that like they hold more rank, they hold higher rank. They hold more weight, so to speak. They're like, hang on, these are the things that we need to value and move towards. Otherwise, ultimately, we're not going to be served, in the long run, so to speak.
Yeah. So I think, there's definitely, certain traits, characteristics, and, Carl Jung talks about like, the archetypes, where, aspects of how we can express ourselves as humans, and each one, has slightly different ways of expressing than others. And I think that largely depends on, what sort of history you've had, what sort of position you were in the family dynamic, what sort of role you had to embody at that time. And therefore, there was kind of more value on you embodying that role as you were developing and growing at that time. Therefore, it became more familiar for you to operate in that way. And it's come as your most known, identity. But I think, what you're saying, Yerasimos, I think I agree, with that, the energy, whatever the essence of being able to observe parts of us from outside, and then make a conscious choice as to how we are navigating that, and perhaps leading this system of all these different parts of us. One that wants to stab someone, one that wants to go and start a drama and fight, one that wants to do whatever, be apathetic to a situation, or get shit done, whatever it is. It's that energy there that can, whatever limited amount of will that we may have, it's perhaps that essence there that can guide and support us to making more conscious based decisions.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It's like, being able to tune into the part of you that like has goals and things that you want to accomplish. And then there's the part that's like, I just want to sit around and beat off all day. And then it's up to you to be like, okay, like this is going to serve me, like, okay, I know you're there. I know this part of me that like watched porn for years is there, but not today.
Maybe that just sounds like the rational mind, right?
Yeah, but the rational mind is another, but
like it sounds like the aware ego is going through a process of rationality.
But the rational mind won't have connection to vulnerability. It's much more rational and thinking. So it's a different opinion.
What you just described is the aware ego using rationality to discern.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, that's the gift of the rational mind, that aspect of you. Anyways, that's my thought.
Yeah. I think the word authenticity though, like I get what you like. It can be a little bit tricky with that word because, for me, let's say being kind of angry at the world when I was young, that's what was authentic for me at that time, So, and someone being kind of dissociated to disconnect from a physical environment that they can't physically extract themselves from, and they're dependent on the caregivers at that time to support their needs. That's being, authentic to themselves at that time as well. Like it's just, I think, that we could describe it as the energy that manifests these different parts of us to the surface. It's like there's a part of us there that's quite clever and highly intelligent. That's like, okay, this is what we are in now. This is the situation that we're in now. And let's disconnect you just a little bit there and, suppress a little bit of that energy there because it's not safe to express it now. And then, in 20 years time, you have a spiritual awakening and then we can bring it all out. And then there'll be some divine lessons that's associated with that. We can call it just like, we're just like this being, just having this fucking experience that mostly, running on unconsciously and not knowing, but there's like something that's more, divine or, highly intelligent beneath that's, guiding us and supporting us throughout life, perhaps like an intuition, and we can connect with it at times and feel like a sense of what that's like. I guess being in a relationship with that from our parts is like having a deep trust that, that I've got my back. And some people would, perceive that energy as God or something like that.
Yeah. It's so personal too.
When I think of authenticity, it's like, is the motivation for my behaviors being informed from within, from internal sources, or is it informed from conditioned and external sources?
I mean, again, that's tricky to unravel too.
Well, it's like sometimes external sources like provide us with some kind of representation of an internal source.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, you could have like a masculine figure come out and kind of say something to you a bit assertively and kind of checking in with you and calling you out for something where you're out of integrity or something like that. And that could be a beautiful way to get some type of, like a moment where you're like, yeah, fuck, I fucked up there. And, internally, I wasn't really able to observe that within myself without some kind of external intervention or, someone there. And I think that's because we're social beings, I'm not convinced that we're just meant to navigate our whole internal landscape completely, alone. Like we have people all around us, and going through that process all the time. So I think it's okay for it to be, external, and it can still be authentic if it's coming externally. I guess the issue is with the external. It gets demonized a lot in the sort of spiritual community. In the external world, man, is just because there is a lot of energy out there trying to fucking pull and grab our attention, because there's a lot of people that are trying to have their own needs met from their own parts that they're probably enmeshed with.
Yeah. A lot of your commentary is like, I guess, commenting on the spiritual archetype, the stereotypical spiritual archetype. So I'm just wondering, like, did you go through like your own kind of spiritual new age phase, or is it just, kind of based around what you observe in the communities, close to you?
Yeah, I definitely think I went through a bit of, like, I've kind of hopped in and out of it here and there at different times. And I think that being able to recognize it externally, I think, was a lot easier, because I was able to recognize it internally and be like, oh, wow, what's that part of me there? Coming up with some pretty wild ideologies and stories there that I don't even, it just sounds like a bit of bullshit to me, to be honest. Like, I'm just kind of there criticizing and laughing at myself, after I've had some sort of psychedelic experience or, whatever. It's just, so I think, I've kind of hopped in and out of it a bit, but yeah, definitely observing it, externally a lot as well. I've got a lot of love for that part, the spiritual archetype. It's a great part. It's got great intentions, really great intentions. It's, trying to raise up the vibe on earth and, love and light. Like, it's a beautiful part of the collective. I've got no hate towards it, but there's a shadow element that just needs to be recognized, and it's part of the journey to recognize it. Otherwise, what's the point of going on the fucking journey to begin with, right? And there are elements of it bypassing and even feeding into dissociating from reality and disconnecting from it completely, and running off into internal abstractions and ideologies because reality is too distressing, or even excessive spiritual seeking, trying to experience the biggest breakthrough ever and the biggest emotional fucking release. It's just, it can go so far gone that people are unconsciously just re-traumatizing themselves over and over again, or detaching from reality more and more and more. And I've seen, I've spoken to people like that. I've worked with people. Like, my content's obviously attracted people that have gone really heavy down that path, and they're looking for more integration. So yeah, it's I think it's the spiritual sort of scene. It's heavily glorified, and there isn't enough, I think anyway, from within it, criticism of it that's constructive. Like, there's a lot of criticism from outside, like, oh, they're a bunch of crazy fucking hippies, whatever. It's like the polarity between the Matrix and the New Age spiritual world. There's criticism from there, of course, but I mean, like, from within that can be constructive to support people with, like, healing, more maybe responsibly, effectively. It's that I get that. That's what my intention is for creating content, and it's just fucking funny.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man.
You're feeding that part of you, to make content.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's just got to play the game, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a common thing to, like, observe, like, very strict kind of, corporate types all of a sudden then flip into this kind of, spiritual persona, and, believe they're completely enlightened, and they've dropped their ego, and they've dropped the past, and they've dropped the future without really having gone a process, like, in between that diligent corporate, going to work every day 9 to 5, and swapping the suit and tie for, I guess, the shamanic headdress.
Yeah. I think it can happen, like, generally when there's, like, an awareness, like, people just gain awareness either, like, of themselves or something within the collective. Like there's just like an awareness of, oh, wow, you know, it was all a lie. Like, you know, these clothes that I'm wearing, it's made in a sweatshop in China. What? You know, like Santa Claus isn't real. Like it can be a pretty confronting process that, you know, if it's a global issue, like it could be during COVID where some people got brought aware of things. Now, like various wars going on, you know, people are aware of shadow elements of the collective. And from there, it's like, as they become disillusioned, like their like identity just like kind of crumbles. Because previously before it's like, I'm a finance worker that works in the CBD that's playing with the economy and la 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 la. And then, you know, all of a sudden, like there's these things that really question, you know, your position in what you're doing in your identity. And then all of a sudden it's like, fuck, who am I? So it's like when that question comes up, it's very normal that we start to like find something to identify ourselves with. And the spiritual world really offers that. It offers so many different identities that we can form. I'm a fucking, you know, light language code this, I'm a, you know, that, I'm a goddess, I'm a, you know, there's just so many options. Like you're stepping into a video game going, okay, which, you know, character am I going to be? I can be the ice bath shaman, or I can be the, you know, the LP code. Like, you know, I can choose anything to give me a sense of identity. And that's fine. You know, it's like when we play football, part of our identity is, you know, revolved around football. That's fine. You know, and I've got nothing against that. Same as part of my identity, you know, Shadow Work Practitioner, right? It's a part of my identity. That's fine, but it's not the whole me, you know. And I think that's what my message is with people that venture down that path. Is like there's more to you than just this part that you embodied to support you with knowing, giving you a sense of self at a time when you were lost.
Yeah. Well, I think the red flag for me is especially with the spiritual types, but this can go for any like part that takes over, is like they just sound the same no matter what they're doing and where they are, like sound, and especially like the kind of the spiritual voice, you know, where it's like, and yes, and you must be at one with the universe and yourself, and the DNA codes will be downloaded, and you know, and then it's like, I don't ever get angry. I'm not angry. Actually, I'm angry with you right now, but I'm not really angry with you. You know, like there's just this voice that just sounds the same, and it's like the spiritualized affectation. And that's over the fucking almost a couple decades now. That to me has been something where it's like, you're more than that. Your vocal range, your expression is more than just sounding like you're this deep spiritual person. And I don't know if you've noticed that over the years, but that's something that has always been like a little bit of like a, I don't know.
Well, I mean, ultimately, it leads to more repression, not less repression.
Yeah, right. And that's what the spiritual, again, we're using that term very kind of vaguely, the spiritual. There's so many, and there's a lot of aspects of spirituality that do support genuine, you know, integration.
Of course.
Whatever that is, that's based on each individual person. But yeah, there's definitely, you know, elements of spiritual ideologies out there that I think have good intentions to help people, but they end up just fragmenting people further, or people just becoming more heavily dissociated. Like you've got, like, just as an example, and you know, I'm not saying it, the book in itself or the teachings is, I'm not criticizing the whole, I haven't even read it, but I'm just giving an example. But it's that kind of Vedic philosophy of the Gita, Bhagavad Gita. Maybe you guys have kind of heard of that.
I know what you're
Bhagavad
talking
Gita.
about.
Yeah. It's like, you know, there can be some elements of like what it practices there that creates more dissociation and detachment from reality. That's what the Nazis were reading and using as a way to cope with all the death that they were perpetrating on the Jews when they were in their like concentration camps. That like a lot of the SS officers were carrying and reading the Bhagavad Gita because it helped them kind of detach from the situation, and I don't know if it was successful or not, but prevent them from being, you know, traumatized by what they were doing or what they were seeing. So, you know, there's some practices within the spiritual scene that I think can be used to create more dissociation from reality, disconnection, and further fragmentation. And that's not what I want for myself. I don't want that. So I'm going to criticize that. It's just, and I'm going to support people who are looking for something different than that. So yeah, that's just an example.
Yeah. Are you, I guess, like in your work process, are you finding, many people, wanting to, I guess, further integrate and having realizations around, the potential pitfalls of the stereotypical kind of new age path? Like, are you finding people are wanting to make that shift more and more as time progresses, or?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I think it's just what I'm attracting now as well, because these funny videos criticizing it, people are going to go, ha, 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 I can relate to that. So then people definitely want to come forward and do some work to just move past that point that they're at with it. But I've had people come to me that have gotten re-traumatized from doing, spiritual type practices. I've had people getting help from, gurus and, all these sort of people that have, said some pretty fucking weird shit to them. I've had, people becoming a bit more their system becoming a bit more destabilized because of some of the practices that they've been using. Because some of these practices, they're not honoring all the parts. They're trying to bypass it, jump over them, kind of cut through all these protective layers, go straight to the source, heal it, fix it. It's looking for a shortcut.
Yeah.
And when that happens, the protective system goes, well, fuck you. Like, you created me here to prevent anyone from entering, and you just entered. So now I don't even trust you. So it can create that relationship with the protective system, or the protective system then goes on hyper alert after, it's like, intruder alert. And then it really starts switching on. And then what you find after these sort of practices is then it starts kicking on a lot more. You're kind of blanking out more, or more anxious, more in isolation. So things like that can happen. So I think I'm getting people that have gone through that path, apart from the people that just want to work on anxiety and relationship issues and things like that just want to go through the layers. They want to go through the process. They've kind of accepted that they can't just bypass it anymore. They're looking for something a bit more grounded. I guess they feel that energy with me because I swear on my social media or whatever. They perceive some level of authenticity there that they want to embody freely. So that, they're in resonance with that, and they want to connect more with themselves.
Charles, do you think some of the bypassing that happens in terms of like doing something really intense that maybe bypasses certain protective parts, you think plant medicine falls under that? Have you found that people who like go and do these extreme things, sometimes they're not fully ready, their system isn't ready for it, and so it can ultimately traumatize them more?
It can definitely happen. Definitely it can happen. I mean, I know people that it's happened to. I think when you're working with that sort of plant medicines that really alter, they're mind altering substances. I think you just got to be really careful.
Yeah.
I think that's I've done I've done mushrooms, LSD and DMT and stuff like that, but I haven't kind of ventured into Wachuma, ayahuasca, San Pedro and things like that. Mm-hmm. I'm not completely against it. I think I'm just right now in my journey, I'm not looking to go inside somewhere. I'm looking for more implementing changes in my kind of physical reality now, taking action on things, growing a business and things, working on my relationship. That's kind of where I see the work now. That's where it's clear to me now. I'm on my mission. But I think, people can definitely get re-traumatized by stuff like that. And I think if you are going to do something like that, I mean, some people can just go and do it in some fucking random person's backyard, and they get a huge breakthrough and their life changes, and after that they're like sober, and they're great. So I'm not saying that there isn't any
Yeah, of course.
benefits, but there's something, there's a level of concern there that we can't place these things up on such a pedestal where we don't give ourselves permission to criticize them, ask questions, or be a bit concerned about it, because those are protective parts of us there that are trying to discern whether or not this is the right place to do it, or the right people, or do we have adequate ways to integrate afterwards, and at the same time. So
yeah, and these conversations need to happen, and information needs to be put out there, because it's not a panacea, So if we're not bringing more nuance to the situation, then it's just like, oh, all I have to do is go to Peru and then everything will be solved. And that's just not how it works, And
that's the issue. It's when you get to the point of, oh, something's so drastically wrong with me that I think that this plant medicine or this medicine journey or whatever is going to magically solve all my problems, because I think that's still being informed by an aversion to the real work, effort, and responsibility required to actually psychologically grow. We
beat still looking for
Sorry, go.
I was saying there's still this, like, I'm looking for this external savior.
Yeah,
this
exactly.
External thing that's gonna this guru, this plant, this thing is gonna be what's gonna solve my problems. Now, it could support you and help you. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I spent fucking 9 days living in a treehouse in the Peruvian jungle 15 years ago, and I did 6 ceremonies in 9 days. It was an interesting experience.
Oh, 69, interesting, yeah.
It was an interesting experience, but I had never felt the call to do it again, personally. And for me, there's other work that has been more powerful and more like permanent and sustainable than that.
I've never really been on a hardcore, intense, plant medicine journey like ayahuasca or anything like that. I think its time will come on my journey, but there's nothing that's motivating me wanting to do that at this point in time,
Yeah, and this isn't, again, like you said, this isn't to knock people who have had really powerful experiences, because there are people who have had amazing experiences that have helped them a lot. But for people that are listening, that just think, okay, all I have to do is this. It's like, just be mindful, you just like, what state are you in? What's the state of your nervous system? I think foundational nervous system work is super important, especially before getting into something that can be as extreme as doing plant medicine.
Yeah, and at the same time as well, just to kind of talk a bit about like how it can be a form of bypassing and cutting to the chase. Maybe sometimes that's what people need.
Yeah.
They're at that point where they've tried so many things, they're reaching a breaking point, they're like suicidal, and it's just like,
yeah.
And that can help them, So I think
it's up to the individual to decide ultimately. And hopefully each individual like has enough discernment to know like what's the next step on the path. Because again, like I know people who are hardcore addicts, and like doing ayahuasca or iboga like helped heal them of their addiction. So, there are a lot of tools out there. The thing is, it's like they're tools. They aren't meant to then be like, now this is the thing and the only thing that works for me, and it's going to work for everyone. And I got to fucking tell everyone about it, that this is the best thing and everyone needs to do it because I'm doing it. You know what I mean?
That's the key. That's the key, man. Healing is such an individual process, and so many people just want to propagate in the same way, very dogmatic ways, of healing, that this one size fits all kind of cookie cutter model. But ultimately, if you can't get to the point where like you're trusting yourself to be your own guide, your own guru, your own shaman, use your own discernment, know yourself, listen to your own intuitive whisper to guide that path, then there's still a disconnect going on. And it's so much more powerful when it's like we're the ones that are leading the way, that are deciding to change the status quo, to choose something different. And that leads us to greater health, healing, fulfillment, etc.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think it's important for people that when they're hearing this message, they're understanding what's from my perspective, like the intention of doing the work is for everyone to be more self-led and to not, judge or demonize yourself if you don't feel like you're at that point yet. If you do feel like, you're at that point where guidance is what is really helping you to gain more stability and find more peace at the moment now. Because I feel like there is sometimes a bit of that pressure people put on themselves, like, fuck, I should know all the answers myself, and I'm not there yet, and I'm still asking people for help. Be patient with yourself throughout the journey as well, and whilst keeping in mind the value of not becoming dependent on.
Yeah, I think that's it, because there's a difference between having guidance and support and gaining wisdom from others, and then just completely giving your power away to them and being like, I must follow you for 30 years now.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Yeah.
Like, I'm always going to have teachers. I'm always going to have like a book I go to or a mentor maybe that I listen to, but there's a difference between using something as a guide versus like, I'm not going to do anything until this person has downloaded every single bit of information that they have onto me, because they have all the answers. This is different.
We need knowledge. We need guides. We need mentors. But I think the key factor is that you're self-led towards those guides, towards that right knowledge, towards there's enough instrument that's built where it's like, okay, I honor that intuitive whisper, and I agree that this is the thing that I need to do next, and I go and do it, and I get a great result, and then the process continues.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Cool, man. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out with us, dude. We really appreciate it. You're doing great work, like I mentioned, and it's nice to see the message coming out in the way that it is. I guess in closing, man, any final thoughts or message that you might have for our audience, and how can people find you, connect with you, and engage with you deeper?
Awesome. Yeah, I just want to say thanks, boys, for having me on. Really conversation. You're both doing great work, putting out a good message as well, and obviously both well informed and gone through your own journeys as well. It's great to share that space with you both in a conversation that's expansive. So I just want to say thanks to everyone that's tuned in and listened. Hope you enjoyed the episode. If anyone kind of resonated with anything that I said and wants to connect a bit further, I'm basically on all social media platforms. I've got a YouTube channel, Instagram, TikTok and Facebook. I don't really use that much, but it's there. But yeah, you just type in my name in any of these channels and you'll find it. Charles Myssy, MYSSY, or I'm sure be there. You can read it. For anyone who's a bit more intrigued of what I do professionally, so I have a program called Shadow Mastery beginning May 21st, 12-week shadow integration program. So that's something if you're looking for something a bit deeper. I've also got a retreat in New South Wales, Hunter Valley, June 28th to the 30th. So if you're looking for more in-person connection with community and myself it's a nice mix between having fun, but then also like doing the work. So that's the kind of vibe we like to create. There's that too. If you want to just listen to some music, most Sundays I'm at Bondi playing the drums with the crew. It's an awesome vibe. Generally around from 4 o'clock onwards, we're there till sunset, just banging the drums and having a fucking awesome time. Good party. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, you can find all that information on my social media channels, by the way.
Awesome, cool, man. We'll have that stuff like in the show notes, and so people can connect with you, man. It's really a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for listening, everyone. Take care.
Smoking mirrors, I'm seeing through the illusion. Waking up in a time they think you're in a delusion. Somebody set the alarms, cause they be too busy snoozing. I'm in a DeLorean, fast forward in evolution.